So, we will continue our discussion on non-collisive oligopoly model also in this session. So, if you remember in the last class we discussed about the Carnot models, and Carnot model is typically a duopoly market situation where the basic characteristic is that it operates in zero cost of production, and that is why we get a marginal cost which is equal to 0. And here even if the firm they knows that they are interdependent on each other, but when they fix their output, when they fix their price, they are not taking into consideration the what will be the rivals plan on the basis of their revised plan. And that is the reason, if you remember in the last class we discussed a situation when in the period they one fourth of the market remain unexplored, no one produced in that 1/4 market, the rest 3/4 market is got produced by both the firms A and B. So, we will continue our discussion on the Carnot model. We will see that how the equilibrium solution can be achieved, or how the equilibrium can be achieved with the reaction and action patterns of the two firms. So, in the last class if you remember we talked about a situation where the 3/4 of the market generally. So, in that case so if you remember, then A, B together they were just producing 3/4 of the market, and 1/4 was not produced either by firm A or firm B, at least in the first period. Now, what will happen in period 2? So, this in the first case 3/4 was produced together by A and B, and 1/4 was not. Now, how it will happen in period 2? Firm A assume that B is just going to produce 1/4 of it, okay, and he will feel that 3/4 is his own market, typically for firm A. So, if 3/4 is his own market, now generally he producing only half of it. So, he will produce half of 3/4 in the market, and that will come to 3/8 of total market. So, A is going to produce 3/8 of total market. A assume that B is just going to produce 1/4 of the market. So, A will think that he is just going to produce only 3/4, the rest 3/4 is his own market, and he, since A produce only half of the total market, in this case the half of total market is half multiplied by 3/4, and that comes to 3/8 as the total market. Now, we will see how B is going to react to this. Okay. So, B will consider that again when it comes to B, what will be the assumption for B? The assumption for B is A will continue to produce 3/8 of the market. Means what is the market available for B? The remaining market, that is less by 3/8. So, this is 1 by 3/8 is the market available to B. Now, B will produce again half of this, because half of 1 by 1 minus 3 by 8. So, this is 5 by 16. So, A is going to produce 3 by 8 and B is going to produce 5 by 16. Now, this action reaction pattern continues. Firm always assume that A always assume that B is going to produce half, and firm B is always going to assume that A is going to produce half. So, they take out that half and they feel that the rest of the market whatever they could produce, and again it comes the half of the total market demand. So, this action reaction pattern for firm A and B will continue. Now, what is the outcome of this action reaction pattern of firm A and B? So, it just goes on with the share, that is half of share, half of the total market except the share of A for B, and half of the total market except the share of B for A. So, this action reaction will continue. So, in this action reaction generally share of A goes on decreasing and share of B goes on increasing, and this will lead to a situation where each farm supplies to an equal market, that is 1/3 of the total market. Okay. So, this if you look at initially the share of A was higher than share of B. So, this action reaction pattern will continue, and with the action reaction pattern finally each farm will reach to a situation where they are just producing 1/3 of the total market, and remaining this 1/3 of total market is produced by A, 1/3 of total market is produced by B, and remaining 1/3 is not getting produced either by A or by B. So, we will just take the graph to understand this, that how this reach to a situation where they just produce 1/3 and leads to a case where rest 1/3 is remain unproduced either by A and B. So, if you remember your reaction function, R1 dash is the reaction function of farm A, R2 dash is the reaction function of farm B. So, ideally this should be the situation where this is the amount of Q1, this is the amount of Q2. Q1 is produced by A, Q2 is produced by B. Now, how they reach to this Q1 A to Q1 B? It is not they start from here, rather they start from here. And what is this R1 dash here? At this point the total market demand is, we can say OR2 dash is the total market demand. So, out of this initially A will just produce this much, and from there actually this action reaction pattern happens. So, if this A is producing this, corresponding to this B will produce here, that is in the reaction curve of B. R2 dash is the reaction curve function of B, R1 is the reaction curve function of A. So, if you look at, if initially A produce this much, now with reaction to this B will produce take a point corresponding to this in the reaction function of B, that is R2 dash. Corresponding to this again A will react to this and choose a combination where in the reaction function of A. And if you remember what is reaction function gives the different quantity of Q1 and Q2, combination of Q1 and Q2 where profit is maximum. So, whether B chooses any combination in reaction function 2, A chooses any combination in reaction function 1, ideally they maximize the profit. So, to start with they will do this with A start with at this point, corresponding to this B choose a combination over here. Now, suppose this is combination 1, then this is combination 2 again chosen by A with respect to the reaction to a combination B by this 1, then corresponding to this again B will choose a combination here, and corresponding to this A will choose a combination here, then corresponding to this again B will choose a combination here, and here A will choose a combination here. This action reaction will continue till the time they are not reaching this point E, and after reaching the point E they generally they reach the equilibrium solution where A produce Q1 unit of output and B produce Q2 unit of output. So, graphically how we reach the Carnot's equilibrium? We reach the Carnot equilibrium through the reaction function approach. We take the reaction function 1, reaction function 2, and the reaction of both the forms get captured in their own reaction function, and finally eventually this reaction action pattern leads them to the equilibrium where this is generally stable, and after that at least in that time period again the reaction action pattern never continue. Then we will see the detailed description that how this 1/3 of this total market output comes to farm 1. We will just take period wise that how this finally comes to 1/3 for farm A and 1/3 for farm B. So, if you generally will just take a form of equation in order to understand this. So, period 1, okay, we will see what is farm A, what is farm B. So, farm A is half of total market. So, this is half. Farm B is half of half market, that is A's share, that comes to 1/4. Then period 2, what will be for farm A? Half of 1 minus 1/4, 1/4 is the B's share, that comes to 3/8. Then what will be for farm B? That is half of 1 minus 3/8, that comes to 5/16. Now, what will be in period 3? Farm A, that is half of 1 minus 5/16, this is B's share, that comes to 11/32. So, this is B's share, 1 minus this, half of it going to be produced by farm A. Farm B, again half of 1 minus 11/32, this is share of A. So, this comes to 21/4. Then we will talk about period 4, output of farm A and farm B. So, this is nothing but just taking the share and making a half of it, but eventually we will see how they just produce 1/3 of the total output. So, for period 4, this is again half of 1 minus 11/32. So, that comes to 1 minus 21/64. So, that comes to 43 divided by 128, and farm B again half by 1 minus 43/128. So, that comes to 85/256. Now, this continue till the time period n. So, we will see how what will be the value in period n, because n takes any number. So, it is 1 to n. So, in period n, what will be the share of farm A and farm B? Eventually, it is farm A half by 1 minus 1/3. So, that comes to 1/3, and farm B half of 1 by 1 minus 3, that is coming to 1/3. Now, what is A's equilibrium output now? A's equilibrium output will be half minus 1/8 by 1 by 1 minus 4. So, that comes to half minus 1/8 by 3/4, which comes to 8/24 and 1/3. This is farm B, farms A equilibrium output. Similarly, we will find farm B's equilibrium output. So, farm B's equilibrium output 1/4 by 1 minus 1/4. So, this is 1/4 divided by 3/4, which comes to 1/3. and for n number of farm, what will be the industry output and what will be the farm's output? Industry output will be n by n plus 1, or to again describe this, this is E is equal to 1 summation E 1 to n 1 by n plus 1, and what will be the individual farm's output? N 1 by n plus 1, this will be the individual farm's output both for A and B. So, ideally what we want to check over here, we want to check over here is that when the action reaction pattern happens, they assume the same behavior from other farms, and that is why they, if you find some of this which remain unutilized, that is not being produced either by farm A or farm B, and that is why they are just producing 1/3 of the total output of the market, and remaining 1/3 is not being produced either by A and B. Next we will say, we will just take an example to understand this Carnot model. We will just take a numerical to understand the Carnot's model, then we will move into the next model, that is Stackelberg model and Paul-Sweezy-King demand curve model. So, P is equal to 100 minus 0.5 x, this is the demand function. This is cost function of farm A, which is it's a constant cost function. For farm B, it's the increasing cost function. We need to find out the profit maximizing level of output for both the farm A and B. Okay. And how we will find out this? We generally take the profit maximizing rule, that is marginal revenue is equal to marginal cost. So, what is this P? P we can simplify this as 100 minus 0.5 x A plus x B, because this x is the total output, is the summation of output of A and B. And what will be the profit of A? What will the profit of farm A? That is total revenue minus total cost. And what is total revenue over here? So, total revenue minus total cost will give us the profit of A. So, this is P x A, this is the output, this is the price, minus 5 x A, this is the cost function of the farm A. So, what is P x A? That is 100 minus 0.5, that is x. So, this is x A plus x B multiplied by x A minus 5 x A. So, this is cost function, this is P and this is x A. So, if you simplify this, then it comes to 100 x A minus 0.5 x A square plus, sorry, if you open the bracket, this is minus plus minus 0.5 x A x B minus 5 x A. Simplifying this again, this is 95 x A, because this 5 x A will get deducted from here, minus 0.5 x A square minus 0.5 x A and x B. Simplifying this, 95 minus x A minus 0.5 x B is equal to 0. So, this is our marginal that is our this profit. So, this comes to marginal revenue equal to minus marginal cost has to be equal to 0. So, this is 95. If you take the derivative, then this comes to 95, this comes to x a, this comes to 0.5 x b. Okay. So, if you simplify this in term of x a, this comes as a 95 minus 0.5 x b, and what is this x a in term of x b? This is the reaction function of A. This is the reaction function of A. Similarly, we will find the reaction function of B, and if you remember what is the reaction function of A, this combination gives the maximum level of profit to the firm A. Similarly, we will now find it for B. So, if you this for x b, we get its 50 minus 0.25 x a. So, I am not just doing a detailed calculation for B, you need to follow the same formula to find out the what we did for A, the same formula to find out the reaction curve function for B. Basically, you need to find out the pi, then you need to maximize it. Pi is the difference between total revenue, total cost. You need to maximize this and then solve for the value in term of x b in term of x a, and that will give us the reaction curve function for B. Now, to find this value of x a and x b, we need to put the reaction curve of reaction curve function of B in A, and we can solve the value for x a. So, in this case, we can find out x b is equal to 50 minus 0.25 x a. So, now what we will do, we will put the value of x a in order to solve for x b. So, this is equal to 50 minus 0.25 by 95 minus 0.5 x b. So, that comes to 50 minus 23.75 plus 0.125 x b. So, solving for this, x b will be equal to 30, x a is equal to 80, and putting a value of x a and x b, that is 80 plus 30, that comes to 120, and putting the value of this will get the value of p, which is equal to 45. So, this is the output of the B, this is the output of A, and this is the profit maximizing level of output of A and B using the Carnot model, or generally using the reaction curve approach. So, what we discuss in case of Carnot model, this is a typical situation where two firms engage with each other, they know the interdependence, but they are not considering the fact that they are interdependent to each other in order to decide the output plan. And that is the reason when they are revising their plan, they are not considering the what will be the rivals reaction to the revised plan, and ultimately they are reaching to a equilibrium which is stable, but in that case they are not exploring the output for the entire the market. And here we take the assumption that there is zero cost of production, and we also discuss in case of Carnot model that when we assume the zero cost and there is a linear demand curve, the output of the output of monopoly is half of competitive output, and duopoly output is the 2/3 of competitive output. So, to summarize this H per Carnot solution, equilibrium is stable and each firm will be maximizing profit by selling equal amount of output at the same price. So, price same, they are selling the equal amount of output like 1/3 of the total market, and equilibrium is reached when both the firm earns maximum profit and have no tendency to change their output. Then we will take the case of another non-collisive model that is generally known as the Stackelberg model, and this is the extension of the Carnot model, and this is popularly known as the leader follower model. And here one player is sufficiently sophisticated to recognize that the rival firms act according to Carnot assumption. So, here one player they feel that okay, they recognize that okay, rival firms, what is the rival firms reaction and what assumption they are taking when they are when they are revising their output plan. So, this sophisticated firm, when they recognize that what will be the rival's plan or what is the reaction curve of the rival, they also able to incorporate that in their own profit function, because they know now what is the reaction curve function of the rival. They act as a monopolist, the naive firm will act as a follower. So, here how it is different from the Carnot model? Here in case of Carnot model, when the firm they were deciding about the output plan, they were not considering the reaction function of the other firm. But in case of this Stackelberg model, they consider this reaction, at least one of the firm who is sophisticated enough to understand or identify the reaction function of the other firm, and they incorporate that in the profit function. And that firm who has identified this, they generally act as the leader, and the other firms act as a follower, and that is why it is also known as the leader follower model, this typical Stackelberg model. Both the firms is in equilibrium because they are maximizing the profit. Okay, before going into this equilibrium, we will see that ideally graphically how they reach to this equilibrium. So, this is the reaction curve of firm A, and this is the reaction curve function of firm B. Okay. Now, this is the point where both the okay. So, this is the isoprofit and this is another isoprofit for B. So, this is okay, this is x dash B and this is x dash A. Similarly, this is the isoprofit function for A. No, this is also isoprofit function of B. So, this is also the isoprofit function of A. This is A, this is B. Okay. So, RB is the firm's B reaction function, RA is the firm A reaction function. Now, corresponding to this, here we have XA and here we have XB. Okay. E is the equilibrium output. Okay. Now, let us assume that firm A is sophisticated enough and they operate in typically this RA, because this is their reaction curve function, and they will produce A which is profit maximizing because the isoprofit curve is also in the reaction curve function. Now, in this case A will produce OXA and B will produce OXB. In this case A is the leader and B is the follower. Now, suppose we will take the turn, we will suppose B is the sophisticated firm over here. What is the reaction function approach? The reaction function is again RBE is the reaction function for firm B. Its equilibrium at the point B. So, B will produce OXB dash and firm A will produce OX dash A. So, if you look at whoever is sophisticated, they are producing more, which they are the leader. Whoever is not sophisticated, their follower, they are generally paying, they are producing less. Like in case of in the first case, B is producing less, A is producing more, and in the second case B is producing more, since B is the leader and A is producing less. Now, till the time the situation in one of them is leader, the other is follower, or the reverse may happen that B is the leader and A is the follower, they will the output will change because they are sophisticated. Now, what happens when both of them they becomes sophisticated? Price war will continue. What is the outcome? Price war will continue, but price war is also not beneficial for the oligopolists, that also they know. So, initially when both of them they will be trying to sophisticated, they will be trying to be the leader in the market. Initially price war will continue, but when they realize that price war is not going to benefit them, rather price war is going to benefit the consumer, they will stop over there, or they will stabilize price over there, and then finally they get into the cartel. So, Stackelberg model says what? Stackelberg model says that it is always profitable if one of them is leader, the other followers, till the time the follower is also getting their share of profit and their share of output. But the question is that it will not continue for long run, because if one firm is getting more profit because he knows that what is the reaction pattern of the other firm, the other firms will also try to do it, that in the long run, and eventually both of them they were trying to be the leader, and that will lead to the price war, and finally it is a cartel. So, the end outcome, when you think about the end outcome of a Stackelberg model, still it is not determined fully that what should be the end outcome where they should stop. So, when it comes to monopolist, both the this typically this duopolist, both the firms in equilibrium because they are maximizing their profit and have no tendency to change the output, typically in the graph if you have seen at the point E, and equilibrium is reached when each firm is able to assess the other output correctly, and this is achieved after a series of change in the output by each firm in the anticipation of other outputs remaining unchanged. Like in the previous case, in case of Carnot model we are discussing, the action reaction pattern of both the firms finally take them to the equilibrium, and the same thing happen in case of Stackelberg model also. Equilibrium is reached when each firm is able to assess the other output correctly, and this is not happened once, this generally happens after the action reaction pattern, and in the anticipation that the other outputs is remaining unchanged. Then before going into the next model, we will just take a small numerical to understand this Stackelberg model. So, we have a demand function, which P is equal to 200 minus Q, then cost is fixed, so MCA and MCB is equal to 80. So, P also we can say this is 200 minus 200 minus QA plus QB, and what will be the revenue function of A? So, total revenue of A is P QA. So, this is 200 minus Q by QA, which is 200 QA, okay, this is no minus here, 200 QA minus Q square A minus QA QB, because this Q is again QA plus QB. Okay. So, total revenue of A is 200 QA minus Q square A minus QA QB, and for marginal revenue of A, this is DTRA with respect to DQA. So, this is 200 minus 2QA minus QB. Marginal cost of A is equal to 80. So, if marginal profit maximizing rule says that marginal revenue of A should be equal to marginal cost of A. So, 200 minus 2QA minus QB should be equal to 80. So, QA is equal to 60 minus half QB, and this is generally the reaction function of A. Similarly, for B, we can find out QB is equal to, I am not just getting into the detail of the derivation. So, QB is equal to 60 minus half QA. This is the reaction function of B. So, now to solve the value of QA and QB, we can just put the value of QA in equation of QB or QB in equation of QA. So, QA is equal to 60 minus half QB. So, 60 minus half QA, this is the value of QB. So, simplifying this, we will get QA is equal to 40 and QB also equal to 40. So, QA is equal to 40, QB is equal to 40 and Q has to be equal to 80 since it is QA plus QB, and price is equal to 200 minus Q. So, 200 minus 80, so 120. So, Q is equal to 80, P is equal to 120, QA is equal to 40 and QB is equal to 40 with this demand function and cost using the Stackelberg model. Then generally to solve this numerical or how to find out this profit maximizing level of output for both the farms. Using the profit maximizing rule, we need to find out the reaction curve function for both the farms, that is for farm 1 and farm 2, and from there we can solve the value of output, that is QA, QB or Q1, Q2, just putting the value of the others, and that gives us the total output in the market and also the output specific to the farm. So, here typically the reaction function, generally we say that this is the reaction function approach through which generally we get the individual farms output and the total market output. Then we will get into the discussion of kinked demand curve model, and kinked demand curve model is also one form of the non-collusive oligopoly model, where it assumes that there is no cooperation or no collusion among the farm in case of a kinked demand curve model. And this model generally explains us that why the price is rigid for the farms, and at least in the oligopolist market why it changes very slowly over time. So, individual farms basically afraid to change their price because of what other farms might do. So, if one farm changes, the possibility that the other farm may not do change, and that is the reason they afraid to change the price, and that is the reason in case of oligopoly market maybe decreasing price is not so slow, but increasing price is slow because the others may not follow to this. There are certain assumptions we take in order to understand the kinked demand curve model. The first one, if a farm raises price, other farms won't follow and farm loses a lot of business. So, whenever there is an increase in the price, the other farm will not follow it automatically, and that is why that farm who has raised the price, they generally lose lot of business. So, demand is very responsive or elastic to price increase, and if a farm lower the price, other farm follow, but the farm does not gain much business. So, in this case, if you look at it, this part of the demand curve is inelastic, because whenever one farm lowers the price, the other farm also lower the price in order to get more market share or more demand, and that's why in this case the change in the price is not affecting the quantity demanded of the farm much, and that's why we get a inelastic demand curve. So demand is very responsive or the elastic to increase in the price, and demand is fairly unresponsive and inelastic to price decrease. So if you look at this graph, if reduced price and competitor match the price, typically if you look at now, we are getting two set of the demand curve. One is the elastic demand curve, another is the inelastic demand curve. If reduced price and competitor match the price cut, then move along the inelastic demand curve, that is segment DI, and if increase in the price and competitor is not following that, then we get in the segment of the elastic. So we have two kind of demand curve now. One, we have a inelastic demand curve and we have a elastic demand curve. So this inelastic demand curve is when price decreases, other firm also decreases the price, and elastic is the basis is that whenever there is a increase in the price, other firm keep the price constant. So ideally what will be the demand curve for the firm? There are two segments, one segment of the elastic demand curve and one segment of the inelastic demand curve. So this segment of the elastic demand curve, because of the fact that whenever there is an increase in the price, the competitor they are not matching to it, and this part of the demand curve is one, whenever the price cut happens, the other firms or the competitor also decreasing the price. So increase in the price, competitor price remain constant, decrease in the price, the competitor also decreasing the price. That's why the demand curve of the firm has two segment, one is the elastic segment with respect to increase in the price, and other is the inelastic segment, that is the with respect to decrease in the price. Here to remember that decrease in the price is generally followed by the competitor, but increase in the price is not followed by the competitor, and that's why we get two separate segment in the demand curve, one is the elastic segment and other is the inelastic segment. So this is generally the shape of the King demand curve, where the upper portion is elastic and the lower portion is inelastic. The upper portion is come from the elastic demand curve, and in this segment whenever there is an increase in the price, because increase in the price, the competitors they are not going to follow it, and the downward segment is the part of the inelastic segment, where whenever there is a increase in the decrease in the price, competitor generally follows this. Now how this marginal revenue curve here we get? This the first case, this the we get also two marginal revenue curve here, because since we have two demand curve, we have two marginal revenue curve. The first segment of the marginal revenue curves comes from the top part of the demand curve, which is the elastic demand curve. So here this marginal revenue curve is with respect to the elastic segment of the demand curve. Then we will see what is the marginal revenue curve for the bottom segment, and for the marginal revenue curve for the bottom segment is again it is a part of the inelastic demand curve. So if you will find there are two marginal revenue curve with respect to two demand curve, because it is one demand curve, but it has two segment, one is the elastic segment, other one is the inelastic segment. So one marginal revenue curve with respect to the elastic segment and the other marginal revenue curve with respect to the inelastic segment. So this is for the bottom part of the demand curve, and previously it was the top part for the demand curve. So this is the inelastic part of the demand curve. So this is generally the King demand curve, and we have two marginal revenue curve. If you notice here, there is a gap between the two marginal revenue curve. Why there is a gap between two marginal revenue curve? Because our demand curve has a kink, and at the point of kink we are not able to decide which one is the marginal revenue curve. So if you look at demand curve is generally known as a King demand curve, because it has a kink between the two segment of the demand curve, that is between the elastic segment and inelastic segment of the demand curve. Corresponding to the elastic segment, we have one marginal revenue curve, corresponding to the inelastic segment we have another marginal revenue curve. At the corresponding to the point of kink, there is a gap between the marginal revenue curve 1 and marginal revenue curve 2. So, that is why in case of a kink demand curve, there is a gap between the marginal revenue curve 1 and marginal revenue curve 2. Now, the question comes, how the marginal cost should be, because we need to get the equality between the marginal revenue and marginal cost to get the profit maximizing level of output, and the marginal cost should cut which segment of the marginal revenue curve, whether the segment related to the elastic demand curve or whether the segment related to the inelastic demand curve. So, marginal cost generally intersect the marginal revenue curve in the gap, in the vertical segment, in the gap between the marginal revenue 1 and marginal revenue 2. And whenever there is a increase in the marginal cost, if the cost shift up slightly, but marginal cost still intersect the marginal revenue in the vertical segment, there will be no change in the price, because at any point of time, if marginal cost goes to marginal revenue 1, that is elastic segment, or to the inelastic segment, still it will not consider as for the whole demand curve, whole kink demand curve, and that is why you will find there is a price rigidity, and this is the outcome of the price rigidity, that we get two level of marginal revenue curve, and the marginal cost curve is not going for the marginal revenue 1 or marginal revenue 2, rather it is in the gap. So, even if there is an increase in the cost, still the firm is not changing the price, because if it is changing the price, again it may lead to a situation that the other firm will not follow it and they will get into the loss. So, kink demand model generally it provides the explanation, detailed description of firm under oligopoly, and it explains the various characteristics such as price rigidity, why there is a indeterminate demand curve, non-price competition and independent decision making. But this model fails to explain a basic question, how price is determined, because it's really fuzzy when the price is decided in the gap in the vertical segment between marginal revenue 1 and marginal revenue 2, and that is why this model has a criticized on the ground that it fails to explain the basic question of any model, that how the price and output is determined, because we have a kink demand curve, we have two level of marginal revenue curve, that is marginal revenue 1 and marginal revenue 2. So, we will just take a numerical to understand that when you take a numerical, when you take a real production function, when we take a real demand function, cost function, whether we get the gap between the marginal revenue 1 and marginal revenue 2 with respect to two different demand, and whether the marginal cost also pass through the vertical segment or the gap between the marginal revenue 1 and marginal revenue 2. So, we will take two demand function, we will take HQ1 and we will take HQ2. So, we have two demand function, one is 28 minus 4P1 and second is 10 minus P2. We will take a total cost function, that is 14 Q square plus Q plus 50, and we need to find out the marginal revenue for both the firms, marginal cost, price, output, and we need to say what is the upper and lower limit of MR, because that will tell us whether there is a vertical segment or gap between marginal revenue or not, and whether MC falls in the gap of 2 MR or not. Okay. So, to start with, we will find out, since we have Q1 is equal to 28 minus 4 P1, we will find P1 is equal to 7 minus 1 by 4 Q1, Q2 is equal to 10 minus P2. So, P2 is equal to 10 minus Q2. Total revenue 1 is P1 Q1, so that comes to 7 Q1 minus 1 by 4 Q1 square, and total revenue on corresponding to this will get the marginal revenue 1, that is 7 minus half Q1. Similarly, total revenue 2 is P2 Q2, so this is 10 Q2 minus Q2 square. Marginal revenue 2 is 10 minus 2Q2, and we have now marginal revenue 1, we have now marginal revenue 2. We will find out the marginal cost from our total cost function. So, total cost function is 14 Q square plus Q plus 50. So, marginal cost will come as 1 plus half Q, and if you look at the kink, at the point of kink, both the demand curve should intersect, and to get this intersection we have to do is equal to Q is equal to Q1 plus Q1 equal to Q2. So, 7 minus 14 Q is equal to 10 Q. So, Q is equal to 4 and P is equal to 6. So, taking the value of Q and P, marginal revenue 1 is equal to 7 minus half into 4, that is equal to 5. Marginal revenue 2 is equal to 10 minus 2.4, so that is 2. So, marginal revenue 1 is 5, marginal revenue 2 is 2. Now, we need to find out MC. So, MC is equal to 1 plus half Q. So, this comes to 1 plus half multiplied by 4. So, this comes to 3. So, we can say that Q is equal to 4, this is the output, P is equal to 6. We have first segment of MR is equal to 5, the value of second segment of MR is equal to 2, and MC is equal to 3. So, we can also prove that the MC falls in the gap of two level of MR, that is marginal revenue 1 and marginal revenue 2. So, today we discuss about typically in this session we discuss about the Carnot model, Stackelberg model and King demand curve model, and all these three models are part of non-collusive oligopoly model. In the next session we will discuss about the collusive oligopoly model, typically the cartels and the price leadership model.